Hi guys, like, subscribe, and share, please. All right, this is gonna be the Russia problem, part two. All right. Okay, before it flashed to me in the video, um, it showed a big map with a key on it and all these different colors of pinks and reds and stuff. Right. Please pause that, and I want you to look at it. I want you to know everything I tell you is the truth. Everything checks out, guys. You're not going to find any inconsistencies or any lies with anything I tell you in any of this shit and any of the shit with Gypsy or anyone else, okay? All right. I may mess up or confuse something here and then, or I'm getting old, misspeak. When I catch it, I'll tell you, or some dumb little thing like that. But the root, the heart of what I'm telling you is all true shit, okay? So I want you to look at that map, okay? That map is showing the eastward expansion of NATO. Okay, since well, it shows the whole deal. All right. So now, what I want to talk to you about is if you look on that map, you will see everything is NATO now up against Russia. Finland now is even part of it. Huge border with Russia. The only thing you'll see on there that's still not part of NATO is Ukraine, and then this country next to it, Belarus, which is an ally of Russia. And then under Ukraine, that borders with Ukraine, on the other side, you'll see a little country that's called Moldova. All the rest of them are in NATO. All right? Let's talk about the history of this. When the Soviet Union disbanded, okay, when it dissolved, there was some agreements that were made. In 1991, there was called Minsk agreements, okay? What they did is they disbanded the Soviet Union. All these little countries broke up into their own thing. And this is simplistic, guys, but and then there was Russia, their main country, but now they're just each their own little country, right? Part of it was Ukraine had nuclear weapons. Part of the agreement was Ukraine was going to give those nuclear weapons over to Russia. Okay, and America, it was George Bush said, we will not move one more inch NATO expansion towards Russia. We will not do that. In the 1991 Minsk Agreement, part of it was also to disband the Warsaw Pact. Of course, the Warsaw Pact was the East's answer to NATO, right? And it had countries in it like what? Poland and Bulgaria, Hungary, Romania. All these countries were part of the Warsaw Pact, right? Well, part of the agreement was, well, the Warsaw, of course, Russia was in that too, the Soviet Union, rather, right? Well, part of it was, well, we dissolved the Warsaw Pact, right? But NATO stays where it's at, just we won't move anywhere closer to Russia, we promise. But now their answer to it, to defend against NATO, is gone now, right? And every single one of the countries that were in the Warsaw Pact, guys, besides Russia, every one of them are a member of NATO now. Albania, Bulgaria, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Poland, Romania, and East Germany. They are all members of NATO now. George Bush said at the Minsk Agreement, not 1 inch eastern. So far, since then, 20 new members we've had. We have 32 countries are in NATO. Remember what I told you about 33 and their evil number 33? Because a third of the angels fell, and that's 33%. And because Jesus died on the cross when he's 33 years old, always it's 33. There's 32 countries in NATO. If they get their wish, Ukraine's the 33rd one. But they knew Ukraine could never get in. Now, let's talk about why the nuclear weapons were handed over to Russia. That sounds insane. That sounds like, wow, what a responsible, generous thing of the West and stuff to say, hey, well, give the weapons back. No, it was a trick. They knew, because they knew in the end it was going to come down to Ukraine is the boiling point that's going to get this started between us and Russia, so we can finally move in and take over their land, split it into 10 regions, and take their natural resources. Okay, they knew Ukraine would be it. If Ukraine kept their nuclear weapons, they could go half-cock at Russia when Russia was going to, they right away, no, we'll nuke you, Russia. That's why they removed. That's why the West sneakily made that part of the agreement and removed those nuclear weapons and gave them back to Russia. That's why. Okay? That's why they did it. Because they're evil. Their every move is evil. Now, everything is the border with Russia, the whole big border of Russia. That's why I want you to look at the map and see what I'm telling you, guys. No superpower would put up with this. America would never put up with nukes in Canada and nukes in Cuba and nukes. You know, we had a fucking heart attack when Russia was going to put a base down in Cuba. Had a fucking heart attack. Almost had a nuclear war over that. Okay, China. No one would put up with this because they can have all NATO's nukes on every one of the countries. Finland, all of its border. The only one left in Ukraine is a huge country. It's the biggest country in Europe next to Russia. Ukraine is huge. And they knew there's no way Russia can go for that. There's no way. And that's what would spark it off. This has been the plan. Okay, let me tell you a little bit more about the plan. All right. So we had 1991, the Minsk Agreement. That was going to be like they agreed. The Warsaw Pact is done, right? No more NATO expansion. When actually NATO should have dissolved then, because that was to be against the Soviet Union, not Russia. Russia and the Soviet Union are not the same thing. They're different. Just because Russia was the bulk of it, land-wise, doesn't mean that. Okay? But that's what they've done. They did a bait and switch. Soviet Union is now Russia. Hocus pocus. It should have been dissolved. But this was their grand plan all along, guys. Why they made NATO to begin with. NATO is to do this end plan with Russia. And they're doing it now. It's about to be Russia led by America NATO led by America against Russia. Okay, so that happened in 1991. In 1994, when the next president was up, Clinton, I believe, they started in the works for the NATO expansion already. By 1997, some of the countries went in. By 1999, Poland, Hungary, all of them started going in one by one. Now listen, guys, the whole border of Russia is all NATO except for Ukraine. All right. So here's what they did. Okay. They wanted to build up Ukraine a military first, guys, because this is how disgusting they are. They want to use every last Ukrainian, kill every last Ukrainian man and boy, wipe out a whole generation of Ukrainian men and boys just to wear down Russia as much as they can. And then NATO will move in. That's what they're doing. And they're at the point now where they got that Ukraine's army is about done. And now that's why NATO's taking over to move in, you guys. This is what's happening, okay? Now, let me tell you. What happened, how they did this is, okay, they have been antagonizing Russia the whole time, okay? The whole time. What started this was, listen, in 2014, there was a democratically elected president named Viktor Yanukovych. But he was Russian leading. They wanted him to sign an agreement, a trade agreement with the Europeans, and then they wanted to really westernize, get Ukraine on the side of the West for when this goes down. Well, he refused, and that guy was pro-Russian, wanted to be with the Russians. You guys, a lot of Ukraine, they speak Russian. The languages are so close. All of Eastern Ukraine is all Russian speaking. They teach Russian in school. They want the Russian traditions, the Russian culture, the Russian religion. They want to be with Russia, all in the East, okay? I'll get to that. All right. So they wanted this guy was pro-Russian and with Russian the way it's supposed to be. Ukraine and Russians are brothers and sisters, guys, okay? They wanted him westernized. So he's like, well, no, he wouldn't sign that agreement. So what they did is they did something called a Maidan coup. They sent in Lucifer's army. They sent in the American CIA, Israel Mossad, and the British M16, okay? Or the MI6. That's their secret intelligence agencies. That's Lucifer's fucking army. Sends them in there. They make a bunch of trouble within the country, make a revolution. They foment that. Lucifer starts all that and starts all that trouble and funds it all, okay? And then they overthrew the democratically elected Viktor Yanukovych, and they bring in this guy, last name Poroshenko, and he's pro-Western. He's like, fuck Russia, and he signs the agreement with the Eastern thing, and now they're Western Russia. This is why they put this joker, this Ukrainian president now, Zelensky, in there. He was an actor, guys. Talk about predictive programming. Look that dude up. He was nothing but a comedian and then an actor. He was an actor that played a teacher whose views were so great, they thought, and so wonderful that this teacher in the TV show became the fucking president. That guy. Talk about predictive programming and then mimicking art. Don't you see? He's an actor like all of them. So they put him in there to be the West dummy. And they're using their own men to kill as many Ukrainians. And then once as low as Russia, then they can move in. And that's exactly what they're doing. This is all fucking evil. And Russia knows it. Okay? So in 2014, they did all this shit, right? Well, then what started happening is, to provoke Russia, they started having the Ukraine military they were bombing and doing all these things and torturing and killing and doing to all these Russian-speaking and that were wanted to be Russian in eastern Russia, in eastern Ukraine, specifically the Donbass region, okay? These people wanted to be with Russia. Finally now, since they started the special military operation with Russia moving in to fix all this shit, they voted in and they are now part of Russia. They are part of Russia's constitution. That land in Ukraine can't have back. They voted on it. That is part of Russia. And no, it wasn't a sham vote and all that. Those people want to be Russian. They speak Russian. They want their children to learn Russian and all that shit. Ukrainians, they were bombing them and hurting them and torturing them and stuff because they speak Russian. They wanted them to stop all that and be because of the West, provoking Russia. So Russia finally they wanted Russia to move in and do the special military operation and start this whole thing, guys. This is all they provoked them on purpose. They were in there hurting the Russians, okay? And then, okay, so do you understand what I mean? It forced him to come in there. And they're Nazis there, guys. The Azov Battalion, they are actual Nazis. Look up this guy named Bandera, okay? In Ukraine. Nazi hero. They're Nazis. True Nazis. And then they say, we're going to put Ukraine in NATO. They knew Russia wouldn't go for that. No way. He can't have that big, huge country. Then his whole over thousands of mile border would be all NATO with nuclear weapons pointed right at his ass. No one would allow that. And they're saying, well, Ukraine should be able to just get in NATO if they want. Another country can't tell them what to do. No other world power would allow this either, guys. No one would allow this. Okay? So they are provoking it. You can't act like, oh, and they say these things like territorial integrity and sovereignty and Russia just invaded them. They're the bad guy. They're the one that evil. They can stop it at any time. No, they can't. No, they can't. All he wants is demilitarized Ukraine. No military for them. Just keep it neutral. No, denazify it. Get the fucking Nazis out there. I thought we were helping Russia fight the Nazis last time. Guess we switched sides. And the Crimea and the Donbass region, whatever they've taken, they're keeping. That's part of Russia now. It's in the Constitution. That is part of Russia, that land, okay? You guys, borders have changed over time since the beginning of time, okay? That's how it works. They are brainwashing you into think but the poor Ukrainians, they're victims too. They are pulling people off the street, the military in Ukraine, throwing the men and boys into vans, even with Down syndrome, and making them go to the military and be put on the front line to be killed. Okay? That is what they are doing. That is evil. It is all evil. Angela Merkel, the leader of Germany, even said in an interview not long ago, oh yeah, those Minsk Accords, that was just, in 2014, goddamn, I'm running out of time. I'm going to have to do another one. They did a second Minsk Accords, 2014, that said, let's stop a ceasefire with the Donbass region and all that. They only did that, Angela Merkel said later, we only did that to fake out Russia so Ukraine could build up their military and get their shit together before what they're doing now. That was all just a lie and bullshit. She said it, guys. You can look everything up I've said. Everything I'm saying is the absolute truth, guys. This is all bullshit. That's why we've been trained and brainwashed since kids to hate Russia. They've got nuclear weapons and they're communists and they're awful and they're going to kill us. Russians are Orthodox Christians and they take it very seriously. Okay, guys? I'll see you in the next video, all right? This is the truth, man. These are hard truths, but you have to understand, man. They've pounded this shit in our head since we've been kids for a reason. For this. So we would accept it. Bad Russia. Good Ukrainians and good the West. The liberal democracies. Liberal democracies are evil, guys. I'll see you in the next video.